Hey, good morning. I think we'll start it there. Hopefully everybody can see my screen okay. So just to introduce myself, my name is Lewis Staples. I'm the VP of Marketing at StaffCircle, and today's webinar is very much going to be focused around some of the findings we've had and some of the conversations we've been having with organisations that we work with, some that we're in the process of hopefully working with, just around how we are supporting organisations in engaging and distributing a distributed workforce. And this is all come about, to put it into some context. We were looking as an organisation as to where we really add value, what our ideal customer profile is, and where we feel we make a real difference with our product. And we very quickly identified that for a while we've been looking at it the wrong way. And the thing that a lot of our customer base had in common is that they had a very kind of blended mixed distributed workforce. So we weren't your typical kind of working with only white collar organizations where everybody sat at a desk. We were very much working with companies, small, medium and large, who had frontline workers, people working hybrid situations. Not everybody had access to a desktop. And as a result of this, we found that actually the kind of, I guess, big draw to a solution like ours was the ability to really unify the technology that organizations give their employees access to. So you don't have that kind of, the people in the office get all of the shiny new tech and equipment, and then the people out in the kind of front line, they don't have access to that. And it's a big problem that a lot of organizations have been facing. We work with, like I said, some small but large as well, like Harvey Nichols, East England Ambulance Service. And these organisations are all coming to us because they've identified that issue where the people that aren't just sat at a desk don't have access to be able to get onto technology and have the same benefits and things like that as other people who are. So it's not going to be a long death by PowerPoint, you'll all be pleased to hear. We are going to have a couple of minutes at the end for some questions. We have already had some people who unfortunately said they couldn't make it today, but they've emailed in some questions because we are going to be recording this and sharing it as always. Just as a pure caveat, it's the summer holidays. I do have 2 children running chaos upstairs. I've asked them to stay upstairs for this half hour, but if at any point you do get joined by a very excitable 11 and 8-year-old, I can only apologise in advance. But I wanted to start this by talking about the main piece in my intro, which was the silos, and what I mean by silos. So when we're talking about to these organisations, what we find is when we speak about the processes they've got in place for performance management, development, personal growth, skills, and all of this, historically, when we're talking to companies about what they've got in place for their, I guess, white collar workers, the ones who are at the desk, at the desktop, they've got access to all of the systems, right? They've got access to the technology, the LMS, they've got access to be able to do all these things online. But then when it comes to talking to them about the people that are out on the road, the frontline heroes, the ones who are going out, like they're in their car a lot, they don't have access to a desktop, maybe they've only got a smartphone. It's a very different ecosystem for those individuals. And often as a result of that, they find that they have, and this may apply to some of the people in this call, but when we start getting into the nitty gritty and talking about things like what does your attention look like and things of that nature, it's quite different between the retention of the people who are office-based and the engagement levels of the people that are office-based against the engagement of the people who are not in the office and they're out on the roads. And a lot of this is down to they're often kind of, not maliciously or on purpose, of course, but they're kind of left to their own devices. They don't get involved with things. They might have a kind of appraisal once a year or something, and it's very much about come in the office, sit down, go through 3 or 4 bits of paper. But it then becomes a tick box exercise, and it's not really seen as that kind of individual kind of real benefit for them. And one of the things that we work with organisations to do through our approach, and the big difference between our approach is accessibility, right? Like, so you can access our platform through desktop, mobile, iPad, any device that essentially can connect to the internet. And you don't have to have a work email domain or anything else like that, which is often can be another blocker. And that's the big thing, is removing those silos. So we unify the process between the um, the office based and then the remote people. So everybody's got the same potential, everybody's got the same benefits, everybody's got the same opportunity, and everybody can be managed, developed, and grown in the same way. And ultimately, that really does then foster a culture of togetherness, which organizations are really striving to do. And it does bring and start to break down those silos so that people are operating in a much more united way. And we put at the kind of bottom about one platform, any device. And you know, technology at the moment is obviously huge, right? Everybody's talking about AI, everybody's talking about the employee success platforms, the development of HR tech and people platforms. But it's really important that when we're looking at the growth of technology, it's benefiting all of the employees and not just a small portion of them. So moving to the piece around I'm very keen today. Moving to the piece around the annual appraisals, and I mentioned that what happens when we speak to organisations is, talk to us about how you engage your frontline and then the kind of remote workers, and what they'll often do is they'll go through the process. Oh, we do appraisals and we meet with them once a year and we set out goals, and a big thing for us at StaffCircle is that they're ineffective annual appraisals. They're very archaic, and they're not at all engaging. I think that the feedback we get quite a lot is that people see annual appraisals as a tick box exercise. And the reason for that is because if you think about, if you're having a conversation with your employee in December and you're going, hey, what did you do in January, February, March, and what are you going to do next September, October, November? It's not an engaging investor conversation. It is very much laid out. So we're doing an appraisal just so we can say we've done an appraisal, we've got some feedback, and often it takes weeks, sometimes months, to get the reports after the appraisal has been done. Any of the information you do get can be outdated, missing things and things of that nature. And one of the things that we actively encourage our customers to do, and this is led by the accessibility that you can have these engaging conversations at any time. They don't have to take a long period of time. You can have these little mini check-ins and things of that nature. Is one, look at how can we do these more regularly and how can we make them more beneficial? And two is, what are we doing within our appraisals or check-ins or reviews that are giving a benefit to the individual? So it's not just about performance and company goals and company objectives, but it's also split out to having that split between how are you doing against your objectives, how are you doing against company performance, but then also, in terms of your own personal growth, what's important to you in this next quarter, or what's important to you in this next 6 months? Like, where do you want us to support you in going? Where do you want to grow your own career? Because what happens is when you start having these conversations with these people, especially the ones who are out on the front line and you've not been getting that engaging conversation with, you suddenly realize that the competency and skill set available to you within your existing employee base is actually considerably larger than you think. Some of the big feedback that we get from customers is the high potential employees have been going under the radar until they've implemented a system like ours, in the sense that it then gives them the ability to engage, grow, and develop those high potential employees. But the most important step is it gives them the ability to identify them. And that, I think, identification piece is the most interesting, because when we talk about high potential employees, it can be really easy for businesses, and I've done it. I've managed very large teams, very small teams, and you've always got the kind of 3 or 4 names on your mind when people talk to you about, oh, who are your top performers? But it's very difficult to understand, well, who are my middle, lower performers that actually have real potential and I'm just not unlocking it yet. It can be very difficult to identify that. It can be very difficult to know that. And having a system like this and having a process in place where you are building out development plans, you are investing in regular, detailed, informative and beneficial conversations with your teams, regardless of their location, starts to paint the picture as to exactly what resource you have available to you, which as a side step also helps with things such as operational efficiency, because a lot of organizations we're speaking to are talking about identifying the ability to do cross project work so that they can utilize people in a multitude of roles if needs be whilst we go through these difficult economic times, and being able to pinpoint the skill set you have available throughout your workforce is a really big benefit to be able to do that. So all of this then comes together with creating the future leaders of tomorrow. So when you think about your workforce at the moment, and when you look at your workforce right now, is being able to have a clear kind of almost helicopter view of the resource you have in front of you, who are going to be the leaders, who are going to inspire the future growth and future development of the company, who is most aligned to the company's behavioral goals, values, competencies. And to give a kind of spill on where we fit in and tie this all together, StaffCircle works backwards in the sense of we're a performance and skills and development platform, but we're not solely focused on performance. We want to be able to give you the ability to identify from your employees who is truly aligned to the competencies, values, and behaviors of the organization. So it's not just looking at performance. Obviously, performance is a big part of it, it's always going to be, but who are the well-rounded leaders that you have within your workforce? If we were to look at your competency structure and skills framework, who do you have that you can lean on to grow and develop into the roles? Where within your business do you have potential single points of failure that you need to kind of backfill or you need to grow? And this is very much the focus for us as an organization, is how we can help you get to the position whereby you can build on that, and you can identify these leaders, and you can drive forward that growth and development. And also with that comes through the risks. And this is where we work with you. Now, what we are going to be doing after today is we are going to share with you, and hopefully it will be of interest. We're going to share with you a few different things. I'll actually show you because we've got them listed down here. We are going to share with you a deathless, not voiceless report. So this is our kind of campaign around bringing and removing in those silos. And this is all about focusing on how we can make sure that we are engaging everybody and not just a few. We're going to share with you an appraisal template. So this, going back to my point around how we are looking to encourage our customer base to move away from annual appraisals and looking to really focus in on how we can build regular, consistent, engaging conversations that focus on prioritizing performance and development. And we're also going to share with you, leading nicely onto that, the performance development template. And the idea behind that is so that we can really start to focus in on the growth requirements and desires of all of your employees and your teams. Now, what I would encourage off the back of it, naturally, working with StaffCircle will be no shock, but I would encourage for anybody who's interested to see how we loop in skills competency frameworks to really drive performance, drive engagement, and drive growth. Please do recognize and then reach out to arrange a private kind of personalized demo of the platform, whereby we can walk you through the process, how it works, share with you some customer stories where they've seen growth and benefits since implementing the system. So I wanted to just take 2-3 minutes now just to open up. As I mentioned, we could have some questions. And I wanted to just take a few minutes just to open up and see if anybody else has any questions. I know Beth, we had a few submitted in already. So we will also be sharing this recording with everybody. So Beth, I'll hand it over to you if we can just run through any questions that come through.
Sure. So the first one is, what tips do you have for the adoption of new technology?
So I think so where we see adoption work really well is when a kind of sponsorship group has been built within the organization. And that's not just so where we see it go well, where we see it go wrong. I'll start there. Where we see it go wrong is when it all falls on the HR lap. And it's like maybe one or two people from HR, they're trying to drive and force it through. And they're constantly kind of ringing the bell, trying to drive it, but it's just falling on deaf ears. Where we see it go really well is when the customer has kind of almost built a committee and got people excited. So, I think back to some of our organisations that have adopted it really well. They've got some of their managers involved who maybe historically haven't been great at completing reviews or haven't been great at setting objectives. They've got, some of their employees who are striving for development involved, and they've really built a kind of team behind them to roll out and make a big deal about it. What we also do from our side is, whilst we naturally do things like training and all of that and stuff like that, we do also provide, where needed, face-to-face training sessions where we would come out to a customer site and they will we'll look to go through with kind of groups at a time whereby we train them, get them excited, get them using the platform and get them to see the personal benefit for it.
Fab, thank you, Lewis. And then Sarah has asked, how would you suggest transitioning from annual appraisals to regular feedback? How often is too often?
It's an interesting question because it always comes up, and I think in reality, it's what's right for your business and for the people in the business. And I know that sounds like a real cop-out answer, but it's not feasible to think every business is going to be able to have conversations every single week. But I would normally suggest that before I was in marketing, I was on the dark side of sales, and when I was speaking to customers that I onboarded, I was kind of going from, if you're currently doing it once a year, like maybe move to like twice a year or once a quarter, and just kind of make sure that you're breaking out the content and you're making it relevant, so almost do like a start, a middle and an end. So you've got the start and it's almost like planning to the kind of first half. You've got the middle, which is reviewing the first half and planning what the second half looks like, and then you've got the end, which is kind of reviewing the whole piece. And I feel like as a transitional approach, that can work quite well because it eases people in. And let's be honest, if you were to go from like doing one a year to doing one a week, it's going to scare some people off. So I definitely wouldn't recommend that.
Fab. And then the last question we've got, unless anyone else wants to submit one in the box, is how can a performance management and a HRIS work together?
So I see the HRIS as the more kind of transactional system, and I see the people and performance platform as the more transformational side. So if you think about like we're focused on employees and we're focused on their growth and their development. And where it works is all of the information. I mean, we have direct plugins to HRIS tools anyway. So what happens with a lot of our customers is they will see and use their HRIS as their single source of truth. And StaffCircle will be the plug-on that connects to it. And essentially, all of the information that happens around the performance side and the engagement side, the growth and development will just feed into the HRS and back. But essentially, they're looking at two different things in my eyes.
Thank you. And we've just had a quick question about the app side of StaffCircle. So if you could just elaborate a little bit on our app, Lewis, for us.
Yeah, of course. So the app side of StaffCircle, I think, is probably one of the biggest differentiators for us in the sense that we live in a massive technology-led world. And, the expectation, if you think about, especially as new Gen Z workers come in, they go through schools, college, university, where they're using state-of-the-art tech, state-of-the-art laptops, all of these things. And then they go into an organization and suddenly that kind of tech stack that they've worked around almost takes a huge step back, and suddenly things are done on paper, Excel, Word. And there's a real kind of like I guess, blocker there and resistance from them because they're so used to technology driving through the world, which it does and it will continue to do so. The way our app works um, is it essentially is a complete carbon copy of the desktop version of our solution, but it's just there for them on the go. So why people enjoy our app is the fact that, or the feedback we've had anyway, is the fact that they can just do things on the go. If they were to um, complete a piece of work and they wanted to give one of their peers feedback, they can jump into the app, give the feedback, give them recognition, give an award. If they're in a coffee shop and they want to fill out their upcoming review, they can do that. If they want to work on their development objective and they're out on the roads, they can do that. It's the ability to be able to be on the go and be able to just dip in and get involved in their own development and growth. But the key part is the fact that you will be able to give access to people that historically haven't. So if I go through a specific example, we have a very large manufacturing organization who work with us, sorry. And they came to us and their big kind of issue had been retention of top talent, but only in a certain part of their organization. So they had it's a very technical engineering manufacturing organization. And essentially the people who are office based were very engaged. They would have all of the access to, like I say, the LMS, they'd have access to any tech support that they needed. But the engineers and the manufacturers didn't have that. They didn't have work domains. So the only real system they had access to was the ability to clock in, clock out, and book holiday. And that was it. When it came to their appraisals and their reviews, they'd meet them once a year. There was a 5-page Word document that would be able to go through, and they would just go through that in a meeting for an hour. And then, that obviously led to reporting issues because of how long it took, because they got over 2,000 staff. So getting the reports of all those appraisals weren't working. And essentially, what we did is we went in there and said, okay, great, well, let's streamline this whole process and give them access to an app where those engineers, they can get involved in things like your engagement surveys, they can get involved with understanding what's going on. Like we can build you out an intranet within the app as well. Like you can keep them updated. They can do their performance stuff there. They can have their career development plans there. They can have their growth plans. They can be in charge in reality of their own career path. And what this did was it led to them being able to go, okay, great. Let's bed this in, let's put this process in place and let's see what impact it has. And the impact it's had is the manufacturers and the engineers who previously were disconnected, were disengaged, weren't involved, didn't have development plans, didn't have kind of regular, consistent reviews or access. Now they're in a position where they do. And now they've identified that actually they've got some strong talent and strong skill competencies. And as a result of that, they've been able to drive down the employee churn within that specific part of the business. And that's all led from being able to connect the people that were previously disconnected from the rest of the organization.
Thanks, Lewis. Just to confirm, we have had another question about sharing the PowerPoint. So I will send that out. Lewis will send that out on the emails that come shortly following this with the recording as well. And then we've had another question, which will probably be the last one. These tools are only as useful as the data that is input into them. Sorry, hold on. And the engagement and time put in by staff. Do you have any tips for both areas?
Yeah, I think data is the key driver as to why we built the platform in the first place. I think it's all about, if you think about at the moment the way things are, if you are doing these things on, as I said about the previous company, they were doing it on a Word document. So the data, they were relying on it being delivered on time. I think at one point they said they would run an appraisal in November and they'd be lucky to get the report completed by February. So that data in itself is 3 months out of date. So any decisions they're making on their people strategy is being based off potentially biased and outdated data, and at times incomplete as well. What you will find is when you implement a system to run your performance management, and you've done the training and you've done the engagement piece and you've driven that kind of best of breed process, the data will start to build up and you'll start being able to see and make quicker decisions that are more aligned. So, for example, you'll be able to look at, you know, we've got, you could do your review cycle on our platform and run a report to give you all of the results, all of the trends, all of these things, and it's going to take you 2 minutes, if that. And it can be visualized within the platform in dashboard reports, or it can be exported into CSV format, or it can be fed into Power BI, or if you use another database tool. But essentially, the data being put in is absolutely important, but it's also how you can then manipulate, read, and use that data as well.
And then one last minute one that we've just had in is, what do our clients do to help make the transition easier from having staff that aren't used to any technology or reviews online and moving them onto a platform?
I think that so they're the sort of customers where we would typically encourage us coming out and doing a kind of face-to-face training session. And we've got a StaffCircle University as well, which gets a lot of excitement because people can get accreditations and certificates and things of that nature. But we'll bed in a kind of plan with them. So it's very much we do the heavy lifting. So when we go through the process of coming into a new customer, the first kind of kick-off call with our customer success team is very much around, okay, cool, like where are we at today and where do we want to get to, and what's the kind of gap between the two areas? And then we'll look at saying, well, you know, this is what we would recommend. So we would recommend coming in, doing a training session. Like we can do some bespoke video training as well, so that we can record some bespoke videos that are targeted. We'll do some guides. We'll also get them involved, like I said, in the StaffCircle University, which is really useful because it gets them on there, it gets them practicing, it gets them to do different things. And it's good for managers as well, because the way the university is structured is there's different areas, you know, based on your kind of role within the organization and based on what you would use the platform for. And that's the kind of process. We are very much a hand-holding organization. And I would encourage as well, there's a review site called G2. And it's always a good one to show an experience of our customer base because it's a technology review site. But what's always made me laugh is all of the positive reviews mainly talk about our customer success team as opposed to the product. But it kind of gives you that kind of insight as to how we work with a customer to make sure that we deliver, we implement and adopt in the right way.
And that's everything from the questions, Lewis.
Perfect. Cool. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Really appreciate you taking out the time. We are rerunning this session again in September. If you have any colleagues that you feel would be beneficial to attend, like I said, as you can see on the screen now, we will be sending over the report, the template, and the PDP template, and we will absolutely share this deck as well. If anybody has any questions post this, please do feel free to reach out. My email address will be following. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn by all means. But other than that, I hope everybody has a really good day. Thank you for taking the time again. And yeah, have a good end to the week.